What do you do when the tech behind one of the world's biggest airlines suddenly goes down? Today's guest didn't just find out, he helped lead the recovery. Amin Lalani, head of Delta's Airport Digital Tools, joins me to share how service driven leadership, operational agility, and people first innovation helped Delta bounce back stronger, better, and more united. If you've ever wondered if you've got what it takes to lead a Fortune 500 company through a high stakes crisis, this episode's for you. Stick around and let's find out with the Era 40 forecast. So, hello everybody. Welcome back to the 40 forecast. I am your host, Lindsay, and today I have a special treat for you guys. Guest Amin Lalani with Delta. He is the lead airport digital tools. He handles so much that you guys probably use every single day. So, without stealing too much of his thunder, here he is, the man, the myth, the legend himself. How are you doing today, Amin?
I'm well, Lindsay. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Of course, I am amazing now that you're here. So, tell me a little bit about your role now. What do you do? I mean, Delta's a massive company, so tell us all about it.
Absolutely. So I lead all of Delta's airport digital tools. So of course, from a customer perspective, as you think about entering the journey at the airport, the bags, bag drops. If you ever checked in a bag, then you make your way to the Sky Club Lounge, use those beautiful facilities, all the digital ecosystems and touch points. Then you're making your way to the gate for boarding, so all the technology to drive there. So pretty much the entire airport digital experience.
Right. So, have you done that for a long time? How did you kind of like find
Yeah.
yourself in this role?
Interestingly, yeah. So I started off thinking that I'll go on Wall Street in high finance. So I started actually doing fuel hedging for Delta back in the day out of college. Little did I know that I would certainly change my trajectory pretty quickly and then kind of realize that I really enjoy the aspect of trying and delivering new products and experiences. And so left my finance role, got into working on the reservations at Delta, did that for a little bit, grew their data analytics practice, then left the company, got into management consulting. And I said, why not go into the deep end and see how it feels? So did that for a few years, then realized, you know what, I want to slow the pace of life, but I really enjoy the work that I do. Then I came back to Delta in a much more of a technical advisor role, which I really got the appreciation of working with architecture, systems, et cetera. And then wanted to kind of zoom out, get into more of a strategic role. So then I went over into our IT chief of office, CIO's office work, and then did a lot of like business development, new growth opportunities for Delta. And then from that point on, is where I kind of ventured out in my current role for product. And so it's been a nice sort of experience to understand the finance side of the house, the data analytics, then getting into consulting, working with large companies, organizations, and then of course coming back into my current role. So it's been a nice sort of journey to say the least.
Right. So let's talk about the entire CrowdStrike debacle. We all know and felt the effects of the outage and how that impacted air travel, internationally. I mean, you being the head of the digital tools and the innovation, what was that like? What did that look like for you? And what did that feel
Yeah,
like?
yeah. That is one that, I will still remember. The vibrations still ring. Yeah, so for an effect, CrowdStrike, it was a component built into our environments. And so once that issue rendered itself, it sort of festered, right, in all of our server environments. And so with that, that sort of brought down the overall backbone of our infrastructure. And for us specifically, we had some remediation. We have a backup system, a mainframe system that we use as well that got us through the business continuity part of it, right? But for the most part, we needed to make sure that that component that was impacted had to be recovered. So that initiated the recovery of all of our infrastructure environment. And so that was sort of the extent of how we went about, taking that out, bringing that patch online, and then ultimately recovering our entire ecosystem. But I think that, one of the things that really came about on this is how our team sort of banded together, right? Of course, I can talk through all the different areas and the nervousness around it, the day of travel, But I think the highlight for me that kind of came out of this was, yes, certainly it was painful. My team and I were all at the airport helping out our frontline teams because we know exactly that, we were trying to recover ourselves, including myself. We were out there and just literally I was taking customers. I even had my co-op come and work behind the counter. So it was really a true all hands on deck. I think one of the things that, I appreciated is our leaders came out to the airport and saw that this is really truly a team effort. And of course, as we talk about crises, that's what reveals character. That was such a inflection point, at least for me personally, to say that, while things have happened, we all banded together, come throughout, and then be there those days that were impacted.
Right. So after that crisis and after a little bit of time to kind of reflect on what happened and how everything went down, is there anything that you would have done differently, or is there anything that you've maybe learned since then that you would have changed?
Yeah, I think that because it was so sort of outside of the scope of our control or at least my control, it's hard for me to say what I would have done differently. But I would definitely say that what it sort of highlighted was making sure that we're constantly going out and towards the operations. And so, my team and I are now adding more visits. We are now, making sure that our frontline really feel like we're engaged with them. And so we've now seen a great uptick in that program, I think, especially coming out of that. So I think a lot of our teams, I think, want to be out there. They want to experience how our digital tools are helping the customers and how they're being used by the front line. So it's definitely brought a lot more awareness, which I appreciate personally because, coming from that side of the house and owning the tools, I'm really appreciative of seeing our broader Delta organizations now tapping in and using and getting some, learning curves built for those using those tools as well.
Well, that's amazing. It's so incredible when you're able to see a company take a massive hit like that and be able to almost come back better, which
Yeah.
it feels like you guys were able to do and really band together, like you said,
Yeah.
and reflect and say, yes, this was out of our control, but that's not going to stop us. So, if you could give any advice to managers, what advice would you give to people who are in these high up C-level positions, getting ready for a potential crisis? What would you say to them?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, when we think about managing crises, it really, for me, some of the, areas of success is how well do you know your team? So for me, the advice that I would give is make sure that you're really in tune with your team. You have to make sure you know as a leader what is the North Star and is your team aligned to that North Star? Very often do I see all these sort of, unintended silos that get created, these invisible walls that get created through because a lot of the outcomes, I think, again, I'm a bit of an optimist, but all the outcomes that each individual teams are driving are good and ambitious, but sometimes they're not able to bring in other teams who may be benefited, right, from that. And so think about have a what I call a beneficiary mindset, right? That's one of the things that I've observed is when individuals and teams just kind of have their own sort of mindset as opposed to a beneficiary mindset, I think you tend to have either duplicative efforts, right, or missed requirements in those areas. And then the last thing is, celebrate the micro wins. It's not just about having you unveil this massive, feature, but it's also about the journey that it took to get there, right? And of course, our agile development cycle affords us those opportunities through the ceremonies like retrospectives, right? Use retrospective as a mean to celebrate accomplishments. And just that one micro celebration, you never know, that can inspire another whole month of motivation, right, for your team, right? Especially if you are an ops center team, especially if you are sort of burning the midnight oil, depending on the work you do. So those would be some of the thoughts that I would give to leaders.
Wow, that is so impressive. And it's so rare, I feel like, to have somebody that has such a strong technical background and have that desire to want to connect with people and help show them what they're capable of. I think that's something that is so impactful in today's world. Everything is digital. It's so important to connect with people. So when you mentioned how agile your teams are, what was it like trying to get that incorporated and trying to get people on the same page as you? Because I can imagine things have not always been that way. So what was it like trying to convince
Yeah.
everybody that, like, no, we need to prioritize this? What was that like?
Yeah, so of course, I have a really good engineering team that supports, that does a lot of the work and the heavy lifting, frankly. And again, formerly from that side of the house, I can appreciate the work that they're investing. But when it comes to the prioritization, right, the focus that we always think about is keeping, first of all, the business has to run, right? So we need to make sure that when it comes to our products, whether it's our product in the lobby, whether it's our product in the sky clubs, right, whether it's a product in our gates, we just need to make sure things are running, right? Without that, anything innovating, any innovation that we do really doesn't matter, right? If the table stakes are not there, then we run the risk of just putting more distress into the operational setting, which frankly is controllable. So I try to avoid and make sure that I always prioritize all of our keeping the lights on work, all the production features up front and make sure that they're working. And then, of course, as we look at capacity and opportunity and frontline feedback, which is how I look at adding new innovation, that's when we say, okay, you know what, let's add that to our backlog and let's go ahead and see if we can realize some goodness through our focus group sessions with our frontline teams, and then ultimately designing that, with them in mind along the product journey.
So, Delta is a massive company.
Yeah.
How does one unite teams from so many different departments? How do you unite that many people? Like, feel free to give examples, but
Yeah.
that is just so impressive that you're able to do that.
Yeah, no, that's certainly always our ambition. I think it really does start with our leader. I think Ed, our CEO, has done a fantastic job leading through this, and not just, the crisis of CrowdStrike, but also in general going through even COVID and how his direction was set forth and then it sort of propagated down, to his leadership and et cetera. I think it really does start from the top. I think, like I said, as I talked about my own North Star, I have to make sure that our North Star aligns to the broader, and we have a term for that called the flight plan. And so every year, Ed and the leadership team talk about that flight plan and where we see ourselves within that flight plan. So that automatically gives us the ability to see where we fit into that broader ecosystem. And then, of course, from there, you have all sort of the programmatic and the tactical collaboration, the meetings and all that sort of take place. But at least we kind of know early on in the year that this is our focus, the flight plan journey. And so we need to kind of come together and bring that to life.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me today, taking time out of your Monday morning. I really appreciate it. I'm so thrilled to have you on. Is there anything else that you would like to say to the people?
No, I think that one thing that I like to leave folks with is always go in with the mindset of service, right? Where can you offer yourself? And you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have a certain level of aptitude or degrees to provide service. I think it's based on intent. If that intention is there, even as something as just checking in on somebody, right? That's an act of service. I would say wherever you can find those micro moments of service. As you can see, there's a theme of micro that emerges as you and I are talking. But I think that focus on those micro moments of service, and I think that certainly I'm a big believer in the universal aspect. I think that will certainly come back in multiple folds and benefit you as well. So keep up the good work there.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great testament. And I think that can go for any situation that you find yourself in. I know, even as an athlete with my background, I played my best and I performed my best when I was taking care of my teammates and I was worried about, I was worried about protecting them. So I
Yeah.
think that is something that anybody that's listening can take into their daily lives. So again, thank you so much, Amin. I really appreciated having you on here. This was so fun. And for everybody listening, thank you so much. Until next time, try not to get lost, but if you do, you know where to find us. 404 Podcast.